Afternoon, everyone, and morning and evening, depending on where you are based. We have got about 25 attendees now. We're expecting a few more to join, so I'm just going to wait another minute or so to start. Okay, I can see the attendees going up quite quickly now, so I think I am going to make a start. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for our session, How NDCs Can Be Bold on Buildings. I'm Alice Bond, Policy Manager here at WorldGBC, and we've also got on the call Audrey, who is our Campaigns Director, who's on the call now. We've got Rebecca Moir, who is our Head of Comms at WorldGBC, and we're also delighted to be joined by Chris de la Cruz from Philippine GBC and Danjuma Wanako from GBC Nigeria as well. So thank you so much for our speakers and for our guest speakers for joining us today. And we are going to be covering quite a packed agenda. So we're going to start with an introduction to the problem and the solution that buildings face. We're then going to go into NDCs as a mechanism for change and an introduction to the NDC Scorecard. We are then going to hear from Danjuma and Christopher about their experiences of working with us as pilot GBCs throughout the project. Today we are launching the digital version of the NDC Scorecard to you all. So I'll walk you through a live demo of the tool, of how to use it, how to navigate it, and really how it works practically. I'm then going to pass over to Rebecca to hear more about the Be Bold on Buildings campaign, specifically about all of the assets that her and her team have developed and how you can use those going forward. We are then going to pass on to Audrey for how to build momentum ahead of COP30 using the NDC Scorecard and the Be Bold on Buildings campaigning. And we've also left about 20 minutes at the end of the session to questions. So if you have any questions at all as we go along, please do put them in the Q&A box. We will kind of go through those in order at the end of the session. So either feel free to put them in as we go along or to put in those questions at the end as well during the Q&A. But I'll pass over now to Audrey for an intro to the problem and also the opportunity that buildings has.
Great. Thank you so much, Alice. And thank you all of you for joining. It's so nice to see so many of you interested in this topic. And it's really important this year that there is such an interest in this topic, because this year countries are meant to be moving forward ahead of COP30 and submitting updated nationally determined contributions. And it's really important that the NDCs, as they're known, that the countries are submitting, are really acknowledging the role of buildings, because as you can see in this slide here, within our sector, we have built a problem and we're moving too slowly. So in order to meet our 2030 targets, we need to deliver an 11% annual decrease in emissions over double the original pace. So if you just go to the next slide, we see, though, buildings as an opportunity. We know from the work that has been administered by this network of GBCs that there is a lot of solutions are already available. In fact, buildings provide over 40% of the solutions needed to double energy intensity improvements by 2030. They can lower household costs if we're delivering energy efficient renovations. And considering that over the next 25 years, we're going to see a 60% growth in floor area, we have a chance to influence this. And the NDCs provide a chance for us to influence this. So now is a really critical moment in time to take on this opportunity. If you look, you know, at the kind of landscape and the policy landscape, building energy performance code are one of the most effective tools for curbing operational emissions. But yet over 50% of new global construction is not covered by building codes. And much of that is in those places where we're going to see that anticipated growth in floor space. And we're also seeing, you know, investment for energy efficiency falling. So it's really an opportune time to deliver bolder policies that can yield more investments to scale the solutions that we know already exist. So if you just go to the next slide. So we really see NDCs as a mechanism for change here. And by delivering NDCs that articulate a clear role for buildings, we will be able to really start scaling those solutions and demonstrate the power that this network of green building councils and this community is enabling to deliver. So I think at this point I can pass back to you, Alice, or if you're happy, I can.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Audrey. So on to NDCs, and I mean, you've all joined the call today, so I'm pretty confident you all know what they are. But as a general background, so everyone has the same level of understanding. So NDCs are climate action plans, and every country that signed up to the Paris Agreement has to produce this document. And this document shows how those greenhouse gas emissions will reduce in line with limiting global temperatures to 1.5 degrees. And I don't know if you've read through many of these, but I have read through quite a few, and they really do vary in length. So some of these are really lightweight documents, maybe 6 or so pages, and others have a huge amount of detail and are really lengthy documents. So they do vary. There's not a particular template that everyone is using to complete those specifically. But what NDCs really do is kind of unite and harmonise across sectors. So it's not just focusing on one specific sector. So you can really use it to highlight how different sectors are working together for those common goals. And as Audrey mentioned, this is a really big year for NDCs. This is a year when there is a new submission, so for the NDCs 3.0s. But February was the initial deadline for countries to submit their revised NDCs. But at that time, such a low number of countries submitted that the deadline had to be pushed back. So the deadline is now September. And at present, when I checked this morning, only 22 countries out of 195 countries have currently submitted. So there's still a huge opportunity for advocacy, both before those NDCs are updated, but also after they're updated as a post-advocacy piece. And I just took this screen grab from the Climate Watch data. And this just shows in blue which countries have currently submitted their NDCs. And if you haven't already been on this website, I find it super handy because on the top here, it has a breakdown of which country, what are each country's level of emission shares, and in blue, which countries have completed their NDC. So this huge grey block here is actually China. It represents 25% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and they currently haven't submitted their NDC. But interestingly, the USA, their emission profile is about 12% of global greenhouse gas emissions, so less than half of China, and they have submitted their NDC. So this is a super useful tool to track on a daily basis what are those current updates and what do they look like. But really, I kind of just wanted to highlight that, as you can see, there is a huge gap in NDC submissions, but with the previously submitted NDCs, they're really not on track for the level of decarbonisation, the level of commitments that we really want to see. So the current commitments are more on track for kind of 2.5 to 2.9. Some models even show 3.1 degrees of warming. And whilst lots of those NDCs do reference buildings, 81% reference buildings, there's really not much detail included in the majority of those NDCs. So only 18% of those include a specific quantified target. Lots of the NDCs might cover one isolated aspects of buildings, for example, energy efficiency, but they really miss out the comprehensive picture, the comprehensive policy suite of what is possible to deliver change for buildings. So there is a huge opportunity here to showcase what should be done. And also just to highlight that by enhancing and increasing the levels of commitments within those NDCs, countries, can use that as a benefit to bridge finance gaps, scale climate action, meet climate targets. So, there's a range of benefits as well. But we do really see this as a huge opportunity, especially between now and COP30, to inspire and support governments to strengthen the building components of their NDCs and policies. And to offer a little bit of inspiration, I've got a couple of examples here of NDCs which do reflect buildings in a really positive way. So the first example is the UAE NDC 3.0. And I really like this one particularly because the UAE, the Emirates Green Building Council, are specifically referenced in the written text of the NDC. So they worked with the government to recommend which policies should be included in the NDC. Those were then, with a bit of work, they were included in the written text and they were actually referenced within the NDC. So that is an absolutely fantastic outcome. And a couple of examples of what is included in that text. So revise and increase building codes for efficiency, rolling out building energy labels, promote installation of solar thermal and efficient cooling systems, and with specific levels of penetration of those as well. So for example, 27% district cooling within Emirates of Dubai. So that is really, really exciting and has happened over the last few months. Another interesting example is Singapore. So they've got a whole host of different measures. I've got a couple here on the screen. So one is the mandatory energy improvement regime. So that's all about energy audits and implementation of efficiency measures in energy intensive buildings, and also resource efficiency grant for emissions. So a few different things they are doing there. But that brings us on to what we are doing specifically with our NDC scorecard for sustainable buildings. And to explain a little bit more about the project, so we have been working to look at the creation of what we're calling an NDC scorecard for sustainable buildings. The idea is the tool provides a gap analysis between what are the best practice sustainable built environment policy measures and what is actually written in the written text of both the NDCs, the national policies and the national regulations. So the tool provides a gap analysis between the two of those. So the idea is you can really simply identify the areas and policies the government should be focusing on moving forward to make their NDCs more effective. So whilst it will showcase, what are the really good examples of buildings included in the NDC, it really highlights as well what are the gaps, what are the differences, what are the areas to tackle next. And within the tool, we also provide some guidance on how to work out which policies to prioritise going forward as well. But we haven't done this just ourselves. So we have been really delighted to work with 5 pilot green building councils throughout the project from different regions. So that's with Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Nigeria, and the Philippines. We've also hosted regional workshops. So we hosted one in the Americas in March, in Africa in April, and we've got upcoming workshops as well in Asia and MENA. And the whole idea was we really didn't want to create a tool that was relevant and specific to only one country, one region. We really wanted to work across the regions to make sure that the tool was useful, relevant, and really usable as well. So we also, during the development process, we also took the content of the tool, so i.e. the specific technical policy measures, out to a global consultation. So we had over 200 unique pieces of feedback that we sorted and made sure we kind of had quite a thorough process of how to integrate those with the pilot GBCs. So we had, a huge amount of organisations, over 40 organisations respond to that. So many of you, many GBCs, but also industry stakeholders and a large number of kind of leading international organisations. I've got on the screen here. So it really was a collaborative approach. There was lots of kind of questioning the terminology and technical language and the level of detail we included, but it was a kind of a tricky balance between having a tool that was very long and complicated and something that would be understandable and usable both for the green building councils but also the government and other stakeholders we want to work with in the tool. So it was a very long development process, but we are really happy with how it has landed. But now I'm really excited to introduce you to Danjuma and Christopher, who will be talking us through a couple of the key takeaways they have had through working as pilots throughout the project over the last few months since last September. So firstly to Danjuma, thanks so much for joining us today. So Danjuma is the president of Nigeria GBC. And I'd be so interested to hear, what are your key takeaways from working on the project, Danjuma? What have you learned?
Okay, thank you, Alice. I hope my camera isn't working for some reason. Let me turn it off and turn it on again. Still not coming on.
Oh, no problem if it doesn't work. We can hear you loud and clear, Danjuma, so the sound is all good, even if the camera seems to be having something wrong with it.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry for that. So well, thank you so much for having us on this session. We're really excited to be here, and we're really excited to be part of this project. It's been really illuminating, and I want to thank the WorldGBC and the project funder for bringing us on board. Very quickly, I'm not sure I should talk. I don't want to spend too much time talking about what we found vis-a-vis the policy landscape, because I'm pretty sure it's not very different from what you said earlier and what Audrey said. It's not much different from most of the rest of the world. I think just three things would tell us what we found. One is limited treatment of buildings. The second issue, which you also touched upon, is fragmented treatment of buildings. In our NDC, buildings are covered more narrowly under energy efficiency, but we also see them popping up under areas like industry, for cement, for waste, and so on. So there is we don't take a systems approach to it. And then the third issue is the disconnect between the national high-level ambition and the downstream policy landscape. So I think that is another thing which I think we'll probably find in most of the world is there is an abundance of aspiration and ambition, very nice policy statements, but it doesn't typically translate into much action on the regulatory or standard side. So, but be that as it may, I think a few things that I would want to share that were very interesting project and were really valuable is the enthusiasm that we encountered from the stakeholders. Our expectation was that they would come and say, well, another one of those, but they were really excited by the project, especially our subnational stakeholders and the professionals. We were very fortunate. We had an incredibly diverse range of stakeholders, and all our workshops, we had the key ministries there. We had professional institutes, we had academia, real estate players from finance, and having them in the room made our conversation more grounded. It kind of the policymakers with the policy takers, and it ensured that our discussions were connected to, how do I say this, real world realities, not just pie in the sky ambitions. Sometimes when you go into a room with experts and you talk about these things we come out with can sometimes be disconnected from reality. But bringing together the diverse stakeholders and the two sides, that is those who make the policy and those who are impacted by the policies and to implement them, I think that really helped shape our conversations and helped us come out with something that was more practical and feasible. Another thing I think I should share was looking back, we decided in Nigeria, we had a draft NDC scorecard way back in October, but we took a decision to start with a blank slate, an open-ended approach, so to speak. And it will retrospect. That was kind of a smart move because it encouraged the participants to engage more enthusiastically. And we ended up with a co-creation process that allowed them to bring their own realities, their own challenges, and language into the conversation. Not that working with a predefined slate of policies would have been bad, but that could have potentially limited the scope of the conversation. And well, be that as may, both sides are both approaches are okay, but I think ours really helped us. It was a bit messy, and we ended up with a long list of the lots of data that we had to sift through, but we thought it was really helpful because it built a real sense of ownership from the outset, and it set the for engagement. We think the process generated curiosity and momentum, and we always ended our workshop and saying what next, what next, what next. So it was kind of the excitement from it all. So what come next, what should come next, I think. Let me quickly touch on that. So one of the most important insights from our process is that was an agreement that we needed a clear roadmap that links the scorecard's findings to real implementation pathways. And so for me, that's the most important outcome of the process. I think it tangentially, was it you or Audrey tangentially touched on that in your remarks, that using the scorecard, it doesn't and it shouldn't just end with scoring. It can and it should be a catalyst action. So it's not just a mirror, it's also a catalyst for action. And from our own context, what we were talking about, yes, we had the whole list of policies that we said we needed to do, but underpinning them and cutting across all the sessions, there were three things that really came out that we felt needed to be in place to make the policies effective. One was that the key policies needed to be enforceable. We have a lot of voluntary codes. We have a lot of policies that do not really translate into regulations. So we need mandates for building energy efficiency. We need to integrate climate targets into subnational building codes. The second thing was that we needed to create context-relevant financing pathways that link green finance tools to buildings. And I emphasize the word context-relevant. We need to look at ways of removing the blockages between the financiers and those that need the money. The third thing that we felt needed to underpin everything else was the need to strengthen our MRV systems and the need for capacity building for professionals and the policy implementers, especially at the city scale. That's to ensure that our insights translate into real emissions reductions. And so I think with Nigeria, and we're about to wrap up our NDC update very soon, so hopefully that number would tick up to 26 in the next few weeks, I hope, from what I've heard. So we believe that if these three implementation pathways are adopted, they will ensure that our built environment becomes a key driver of our climate commitments. I don't know how I'm doing for time, Alice.
That's perfect, Anjima. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And it's so great to see the level of enthusiasm, because I remember at the beginning you were saying, oh, we have you know, the different stakeholders from government joining, but I'm not sure if they're going to come to all of the workshops. So it's so great to hear in your most recent workshops they had all attended again, and you had such, you know, high level of enthusiasm and attendance. So that is absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to pass the same question over to Christopher de la Cruz, who's CEO of the Philippine GBC. So again, the question was, what are your key takeaways from working on the project, Chris?
Thank you, Alice. Before I begin, colleagues in the WorldGBC, guests and friends, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. No? There's a lot of lessons that we gained, no, from the projects, but allow me to focus on the key takeaways. Through the WorldGBC NDC project, our stakeholders in the Philippines have come to a realization that buildings must be at the heart of our climate policy. While our sector contributes significantly to emissions, it also holds potential for carbon reduction, resilience, and particularly here in the Philippines, green job creation. Our NDCs must reflect this critical role. One of the most impactful insights was the shift in mindset, no, from building more, which is most of the time a focus, no, in developing countries, no, to building better. Emphasizing renovation and retrofitting of existing structures has proven to be a practical and cost-effective strategy. It allows us to reduce emissions, enhance energy performance, and support local industries without the environmental burden of new development. Stakeholders also highlighted the importance of transitioning to circular and low carbon materials, whether it's recycled steel, bio-based alternatives, or locally sourced materials. These choices not only reduce environmental impact, but also spur innovation in our construction supply chains. However, to move forward, we must address existing gaps. Many of our policies, energy codes, procurement systems, and urban planning strategies and tools, I have to admit, are quite outdated or disconnected from our climate ambitions. The scorecard has helped us identify these gaps clearly and, more importantly, has shown us where to act. Another significant lesson is the need for stronger public-private collaboration. Government agencies, the developers, the manufacturers, the building professionals must work in sync. We should not work in silos to implement meaningful policy reforms. And I think lastly, we've gained a broader understanding that sustainable buildings are not really just about energy and emissions. They are about people. No, we have to create healthier, more inclusive, and more uh, resilient spaces for all Filipinos. The the project has provided us with more than a checklist. No, it is hopefully, in the future, it serves as a common language or a tool for us here in the Philippines to align and plan and act accordingly, for our climate goals. Alice?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Christopher. And I love that final statement around buildings, you know, not just energy environment, but it's people as well. So that's a brilliant note to finish on. And one more question to you both before we move on. So I'd be so interested to hear, as we've got, a huge crowd of different green building councils today, do you have any comments or anything to build on to explain to maybe other GBCs what you have found as the main benefit of using of using the NDC scorecard tool? You know, like why might it be useful for other GBCs to use and to complete?
Do I go first?
Sure, go for it, Danjuma.
Well, I think for us, going back to our experience is the enthusiasm it's able to create, and that enthusiasm has the potential to translate into actions on the ground. As people always look for opportunities to use the knowledge they have. That's a given. So we had a bit of concern because we were not able to engage, for example, because this may be something that other GBCs encounter, and sharing it so that they're not too discouraged. We were not really able to engage directly with our National Council on Climate Change, which is the agency organization that's actually driving the NDC update. That was a concern, but we found that we had key stakeholders in the room with us who were involved in that process in the NDC working group, and they now took the output from our workshop into working group discussions. So that way we believe that the information has got where it needs to go. So that is linked again to the enthusiasm. You see people excited with the process and seeing how they can take it to the next level, to their spheres of influence and opportunity. So I think it has real opportunity to generate actions on the ground. You may not see high-level action, for example, but I think action at the city scale, at the subnational scale, is also very important within the context of buildings. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Danjuma. And over to you, Chris, if you've got any more comments to share.
Yes, Alice. The NDC scorecard is for us is a far more than a simple diagnostic tool for our climate policy. It is a strategy enabler for green building councils. The scorecard can enable RGBCs and national policymakers to evaluate and compare our country's NDC, highlighting precisely where the building sector is underrepresented or absent. This clarity fosters a national dialogue built on measurable facts as provided for by the scorecard, creating the foundation for improved ambition and transparency. It allows us to have a systematic assessment of areas such as carbon resilience, circularity, finance, and others. The scorecard highlights very specific policy gaps. This can help our GBCs move from broad recommendations as the practice currently today, to more actionable advocacy with more pinpoint accuracy. And because it is co-developed with the 5 GBCs, and of course with the backing of our global group, the scorecard offers a recognized framework. Adopting it connects our GBCs to a peer learning network. It allows us to share best practices amongst ourselves to advance and amplify collective impact. Our NDCs are always updated regularly. The scorecard can give us, the GBCs, a strategic lead, enabling us to influence our national climate commitments proactively by ensuring sustainable building metrics. And using this tool also elevates our national GBC's standing. It positions us as a trusted and technical advisor to our national government agencies, finance institutions, our development partners, no, potentially granting us stronger access to higher level policy decision making. And lastly, the scorecard, no, is again more than just a diagnostic or an analytical tool, no. It initiates cross-sector dialogue by engaging government, developers, our financiers, our professional sector. This multi-stakeholder engagement builds alignment and momentum needed to translate policy into real-world projects. For green building councils worldwide, we can demonstrate our commitment, no, to improving our climate impact, equity, resilient urban infrastructure, and I find personally, no, this tool as very indispensable. It helps us transform our ambition, our global ambition, no, into action in local jurisdiction, national and local jurisdictions. Alice?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Super interesting to hear as well. Yeah, thank you so much to Chris and to Danjuma for your time, and also for all of your efforts over the last few months and working on the project with the other pilot GBCs. Your kind of input and feedback and workshops has been so invaluable to developing and finalising the scorecard and making sure it works and is suitable in the languages sits right. So thank you so much for all of your time. But now we're going to move on to what is actually in the scorecard, how does it work practically, and a bit of a live demo of how the digital asset works as well. So we have created a digital platform. So you will all be able to log into the platform. We'll be able to share the registration link on Wednesday, kind of when we email out the summary email for this call. So you'll be able to come on here and create a login. And in terms of the specifics of what's included in the scorecard, so we have finalised the policy categories into these distinct areas. So firstly, there's a section on the enabling environment. So this is the government level enabling environment for best practice for setting up good policies in general. And then we go on to the more technical categories, the more technical areas. So we have got a carbon and energy, adaptation and resilience, circularity, water, biodiversity and nature, health and well-being, and equity and access, different categories. So under each policy, under each policy category, there are a number of different policy measures which are linked directly to each of those areas. So it gets more specific as you go through. And this is a visual of what it looks like, and I will go through the demo in a moment. But essentially, there is a kind of summary page to highlight the entire way you have completed the tool. But I think it makes a lot more sense if I share my screen with a live demo, so I can just show to you how it works in practice. So hopefully you can see my screen here. So once you've logged in, you will get to this page. So once you've created a registration, you'll be able to log into this page. There will be a highlighted country, which is the country that you are representing to fill out the scorecard for. On this page, there is a description of how to fill out the scorecard. In the email, we'll also share with you a more detailed PDF of a bit of a background to the project, a lot more detail of how the tool has been developed, some stats that might be helpful for maybe if you're talking about the project or communicating the project to others, and also more detail about how to fill out the scorecard. But we think that this is a high level overview which will allow you to complete the scorecard, and it might mean you refer to the more detailed guide if you've got any further questions, but we expect this to be comprehensive enough to get you started and get you going, and you might have some more specific questions. But then you go up to this button, which is the edit button, and this goes into your specific scorecard that you're filling out. So you will have access to your country's scorecard. So as a GBC, you will be an official country representative who will be completing the scorecard on behalf of your country. You may also want to assign somewhat, other official representatives from the country. For example, someone from government might also want access to your account. So there will only be one official account per country. And if you want to create a non-official account, i.e. you're not completing the scorecard for your country, for example, France, Nigeria, you can fill it out for a non-country account, which means that you're filling it out either as an advocacy tool to give it a go or to have a feel for what the policy measures are. So there's a few different ways of using it. So we'll start from the enabling environment. So this is the country level way the government is set up to enable policies to run and financing and that kind of thing. So we have split these down into different categories. So you can go through the tool and you can highlight your cursor over whether each of these is included, and you can select green, red or orange, whether it's yes, it's included, cross is no, and the ... is in progress. And you can also use this space here for any free text. So it might be either there's a next step action that's required, or it might be you want to link to a specific policy area, which might be helpful for others to reference later, for example. So once you've completed this, you can either navigate via this next step category, or you can navigate across the top tabs to the next steps. So the subsequent categories are all the technical areas. So these all highlight kind of technical policy areas. So we've broken these down and we've landed on 48 different policy measures. So you can see the policy categories. So within carbon and energy, for example, we have linked these through into different policy categories. And these are actually listed by order of impact. So we suggest if policies haven't been included so far, working from the top and going down to the bottom in order of importance, in order of general importance. We do have some guidance at the end of the tool, which provides a little bit more guidance on how to prioritize, but that's generally the order we suggest. There are some caveats in there as well. And just to say that, so we have the policy measure listed here. Just to say that below here, we've got this more information button, which has, for example, a policy example, some links, some relevant extra information for you to refer to. So please do use those if you wish. We haven't got these boxes for every single policy measure just because we thought it looked too cluttered. So we have selected a few categories to include these on. But whilst you're using the tool, if you have any feedback, please do send me an email if you think there's anything that you think would be super helpful to add. We can always add some extra examples in there. And so then once you've read the policy measure, you then go through to these three columns here. So the first is NDC. So you can either choose to complete the whole scorecard just for your NDC. So it might be either you're short on time or you don't have developed policies and regulations to include. So it might be relevant for you to only include the policy category, and that's completely fine. We do find, and with the pilot GBCs, that a more comprehensive overview is for you to complete the NDC as well as the national policy and regulations, because that shows that the policy isn't just embedded in the NDC, but it's also embedded in delivery via the policy and regulations as well. And there's also this free text box here. And so that's a space for you to write any next step actions, which is super helpful for when you come to write your next step action report, if you wish to do so, and also to note down any policies that might be referenced within that policy measure. So those can be referred to as well. And just so you're aware, when you log in, you will only have access to your country's data. So if you are Nigeria, for example, logging in, and you've completed the tool for Nigeria, you will only be able to see Nigeria's data. And the reason we've done that is because We didn't want to shame countries by sharing every single data point with everyone else. And we didn't want to put countries off in thinking that, oh, we're really far behind our neighbouring country, we're not going to fill it out because they're going to shame us. We really want this tool to be, usable and useful to everyone and be used as a positive advocacy and policy tool for everybody. What we will do, though, is be able to pull data at global level to provide statistics and information, and also with requests. So we will ask specific requests. We might also ask to share some examples of good practice policies or NDCs that we can share as case studies going forward. So that's how that works. But how you navigate the site is you can either go across the tabs at the top, or you can click through at the bottom. So I kind of suggest completing the scorecard from left to right. At any time, you can pop down to the bottom and hit save progress. So you don't have to complete the scorecard in one go. You can come back and log in several times until you have completed the scorecard and you're happy with your submission. So once you've reviewed and you're happy with your submission, it's super clear which boxes you've completed, because if they're grey, they are yet to be completed. And if they're coloured, you have completed and selected those. So hopefully that's a helpful visual. So once you've completed all of the tabs, you can then scroll to the bottom and click on Summary Overview. So this provides a one-pager of how your policies have been filled out across the different categories. It will highlight the key areas where you have got policies included, and also some areas where there are policies which might want to be included in the future. You can then submit which signals that you've completed your scorecard. And once you've registered as well, your country will come up on the main scorecard page. It's a green filled out country, so it's super clear which countries have registered and started the process of filling out the scorecard. So just to highlight that. At the bottom, you can then click on Next Steps. And this page needs a slight formatting adjustment, but it does highlight how you might go about prioritising those key next step country level policy actions. So whilst we do have a list of 48 policy measures, it might be, for example, your country has completed 10 of those, but you really don't want to be suggesting or putting forward 38 policy measures to government. That's just not going to be successful. So this page is hopefully helpful for you to guide you through how to prioritise which policies to focus on for your advocacy and for your focused next steps. So that's a very kind of higher level overview of the tool. Let me just go back onto the slides. And so the idea is, so once you've completed the scorecard, obviously it does provide that gap analysis of what are the best practice sustainable built environment policy measures, but also, what are the gaps? How do you address those? How do you convert those into next steps? So whilst completing the scorecard is important, really prioritising and focusing what those next steps are is a big next step as well. So if you're interested in getting involved more, I've read this paper. I think it's fantastic. So if you want a more detailed overview of what NDCs are, a bit of a background, more information and insight, this report is really fantastic. It's WorldGBC's NDCs for Buildings report, written last year. I then suggest you review your country's NDC and policies and identify whether buildings are included in those. Then log in and use our tool to complete the tool and work out, what are those gaps, what are those next steps, and then work to create focused next steps which you can use in your policy and advocacy. So as I mentioned earlier, you will receive a registration link to the digital tool on Wednesday within the follow-up email to this session. And the next steps of what we're working on throughout the project. So we are so excited to announce that we are working with 11 new GBCs specifically to host workshops and create a next step action plan. So those countries are Emirates, Morocco, Malaysia, Indonesia, South Africa, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Ecuador, Chile, and Costa Rica. So those workshops will be taking place over the coming months. We're also working with the pilot GBCs to create their action plan. So those will be ready by the end of this month. We've got regional workshops taking place in MENA in 2 weeks' time, and in the Americas in July, and also in Asia in July as well. But really the focus on the rest of the year is on capacity building, really working with as many of you as possible to complete the scorecard, and also on our Be Bold on Buildings comms campaign. So I am now going to pass over to Bex to talk you through the Be Bold on Buildings campaign.
Thanks, Alice. So hi, everyone. I'm Bex. I'm the Head of Marketing Communications at WorldGBC. And I'll now take you through the creative assets we've designed to support the launch of the NDC Scorecard tool, building all the way towards COP30. So first, I just wanted to start by taking you on a journey of where we started with the narrative for this campaign. So from the language here, you'll see the building blocks that have helped us to create a framing device for the campaign creative assets. So buildings have served humans well. They've been our shelters, our guardians, our homes. But in the 21st century, they can do so much more. Buildings can tame floodwaters, heat waves and droughts. They can clean the air we depend on, improve the health of communities, reduce our energy bills and dependencies, cut our waste, regenerate our resources, and be our greatest allies in the journey to zero carbon. The World Green Building Council and the Green Building Council Network are on a mission to catalyse bold action on buildings from government, industry and investors around the world, because the bolder we all get on buildings, the more we can seize their power to make the future better for everyone. So next slide, please, Alice. Some of you may be familiar with Be Bold on Buildings already. We introduced it last year for our COP29 campaign, where we called on governments to strengthen their NDCs. But this year we are widening the scope and we'll use it to drive all WorldGBC campaigns. So in World Green Building Week, for example, in September this year, we'll be inviting GBCs, their members and partners, to share examples of bold action on green building solutions that can inspire bold action from others in turn. But in the rest of today's session, I'll be focusing specifically on the NDC part of the Be Bold on Buildings campaign. So the audience for this communications, our primary audience is government policymakers, not just the people who might actually use the scorecard tool, but anyone who shapes or influences policy and planning. And then our secondary audience group is industry and finance, including your own members and partners. The objectives of the campaign: we want to raise awareness of the roles green buildings can play in building a better future for all. We want to raise awareness of the gap between ambition, so where we are with the Paris Agreement and current NDCs, and drive national ambitions for NDCs and green building policies more generally, encourage people to use our NDC scorecard tool or learn from its findings, and showcase the role of WorldGBC and our network of green building councils. So the creative insight for this campaign, which is very much the crux, which we keep going back to, is this statement here. So the ultimate responsibility of policymakers is to their people. So by connecting being bold on buildings with positive human outcomes, we can get to the heart of why our audience should care about strong NDCs and policy actions. Here you'll see some examples of the core creative assets we've created. The high-level message of the campaign connects being bold on buildings with a better future for people. And you can see that very much from the images we've used here and the type of copy we've used here. So we're always bringing the benefits to people back to our why. So each of the creatives we have focuses on specific human benefits, which relate to the different categories in the NDC scorecard. So carbon and energy, adaptation and resilience, and circularity, water, biodiversity and nature, health and well-being, equity and access. So we'll provide editable templates so you can add your own locally specific images and copy, which I'll go through in a moment. And we also have generic suggested copy, which you can use or you can choose to edit to support each of these creatives. We also have a video, which we won't play now, but you can find in the Trello board, which we'll be going through. So this video asset focuses on the additional benefits of being bold on buildings. It's available in a variety of formats for the different social media platforms, but you're very much welcome to use this in your comms. So we have a toolkit of ready-made core creative assets. Oh, sorry, we are playing the video. I'm not sure if the sound's working there, though. I'll skip that and just, yeah, carry on to the next slide. So I'll walk you through the Trello board in a moment, but essentially we have a toolkit of ready-made core creative assets, and you can pick the messages most relevant to your audiences. If preferred, you can also choose your own imagery to maximize local relevance, as well as tweaking headlines and adapting copy for your own needs. The first posts are intended to be published on the day the scorecard tool launches to the public, so on the 24th of June. But they are intended to be adaptable, so they can be turned into ads, posters, and other formats, and used at key occasions such as COP30, London Climate Action Week, New York City Climate Week, and the regional climate weeks as well. Our NDC scorecard engagements will be a continuing process throughout the year. So because of this, we encourage you to run always on communications as your NDC work develops. So for this reason, we have developed more flexible styles of communicating about NDCs, which you can use to keep people informed of progress, events and findings in your country. And on the next slide, I'll talk through how you might communicate at different key moments. So as an example here, you might, if share details about an NDC workshop that you're hosting. So the first post you choose to use on social media might be promoting the NDC scorecard tool itself. Then you might wish to do another post promoting an NDC focused event, and then a follow-up post with a roundup summary, key takeaways, details of the event, learnings, and areas of focus and success. And these templates, which you can see on this slide, are all fully editable and in PowerPoint for you to use. On this slide, it's just another example of how you might choose to adapt the assets we're providing. So this image is taken from a PowerPoint presentation template. It's a slide which highlights the key areas of action for your country, but you might wish to delete the categories which aren't relevant to you and edit the text based on your own findings. And this, is part of a fully editable presentation deck. So next, I'll walk you through where to find the assets, which is on the Trello board we've built. So Alice, if you wouldn't mind taking us over to the Trello board. And Audrey, if I could also ask you to share a link to the Trello board in the chat so people have access to that. So here I'll work from left to right, but you can see we have an image there launching the scorecard on the 24th of June, which you can use. We have various social media assets which you can use. So there's kind of the generic ones, but then we also have editable versions which are available to you on PowerPoint. And within the if you go on to PowerPoint, we've also have instructions on how to edit those individual social media assets, with instructions to put images in the different shapes and how to change the text. So that's all there readily available for you to edit. We also have a link to a campaign video which you can use to help communicate your work. We also have some editable social media copy. So we've just put together a document of suggested copy to accompany the suite of social media assets, which you can use and tailor to your own needs. We also have an editable PowerPoint and Word templates, which you can use. We also have a presentation version about the NDC scorecard as well, if you wish to, present to your members about the tool. So there's a slide deck version there, as well as a PDF version for sharing. And we also have various logos for the Be Bold and Buildings campaigns, which you can use. We've supplied some social media headers. So there's different sizes there for X, LinkedIn, Facebook headers, and also a email footer, which you can use. We have a range of assets for the various regional conferences and workshops which have been taking place to help promote those. And then the following items, you can just see that there's a few items still to come. So there will be a press release going up this week, which you can, again, tailor. There will be a business action statement going up on the Trello board, which Audrey will talk you through in a moment. And there will also in the next couple of days be a letter of introduction to governments going up on the Trello board. And you can use this letter to introduce the NDC score to relevant policymakers. So that's just like a template there for you to use. So now if I just jump back quickly to the presentation. So if I just go to the next slide, please, Alice. You can see here the timelines for the campaign. So we're going to be rolling out the campaign from the launch of the NDC scorecard, building all the way towards COP30. So starting from the 24th of June, when we'll launch the tool publicly, and we then encourage you to start promoting it across your channels with your networks and key policy stakeholders using the assets from that Trello board. We'll also be opening engagement with an action statement at that point, which we encourage you to share with your partners, and Audrey's going to come on to that in a moment. Then over the summer months, we encourage you to use the templates and assets to continue the conversations on your NDC work, promoting any workshops you might be hosting, sharing your findings, raising awareness of the tool and the importance of NDCs and policies. And this will all build towards COP30, when we'll have another coordinated burst of the creative campaign, this time supported by the findings from the scorecards and with the strength of the business community behind our action statement. So I'll now pass over to Audrey to quickly go through the advocacy actions and meetings on this timeline, and then to walk you through the action statement, which we're currently developing.
Great. Thank you so much, Bex. So yeah, as you can see, the NDC Scorecard tool is a kind of key component of our advocacy work, and there's a couple of milestones that bring us up to COP, where we feel that we can, bring together the network across kind of a collective advocacy agenda. But I think it's also important to just highlight that, this is not just about COP. This is about demonstrating the work that Green Building Councils are doing, which is focused on action and implementation that supports delivery of our kind of global advocacy and climate goals that we talk about at COP. So I just want to make that distinction. So I think there's a couple of things that are happening. So within the regional networks, we are going to be hosting regional workshops and the NDCs. So we've already hosted one in Chile. I think Maria Fernandez on the call. And we've also had one in Mauritius for the African Regional Network. So they were quite successful in sort of bringing this conversation to the regional level, and in the next week we'll be going to Dubai, hosting the MENA regional workshop and bringing the NDC scorecard there, and then also in July the Asia regional workshop. So lots of opportunities to kind of get involved in a more hands-on way. Obviously COP is taking place in the Americas, so based on our conversations in Chile, we had conversations about doing a sort of regional manifesto call to action. And the language I'm trialing right now for that is an implementation declaration, because I think really where the value add in our advocacy, at COP and beyond is not just calling for commitment and ambition, but demonstrating that with the power of this network of 47,000 members, that we're already implementing key actions, and that you guys as GBCs kind of hold the keys to unlocking all of the action that takes place. So what we really want to do with the kind of America's call to action is demonstrate what's already happening and how to link that into like what might be negotiated at COP. We also obviously, you know, we really encourage you as GBCs to host your own workshops, encourage engagement with the tool, share your findings, and do advocacy, you know, at the national level, and inform us of kind of the key findings, so that can kind of support the global campaigning and the storytelling that we want to bring to the global advocacy effort. So I know lots of GBCs are running their own workshops on the NDC Scorecard who are not part of the pilots. And obviously you can use the assets to host your own workshops if that's something that you're able to get your own funding for. And hopefully, you know, Danjuma and Chris have spoken to the power of using this as an engagement tool. We also every year do a policy briefing ahead of COP. So this year we will be doing the same and trying to link that to the findings of the global stocktake and what we're seeing coming from NDCs. And then we will be delivering an open letter at COP to the heads of states who are convening in Brazil to negotiate. And all of the outcomes from what you see here will be informing that. But if you just go to the next slide, I'll maybe give a bit more detail on this open letter. So we're kind of building on an approach we had at COP28. And essentially what we want to do is put forward an action statement to governments ahead of COP. And what we want is to leverage the power of our whole network. So, you know, together we are a community of 47,000 organizations between our GBCs, our partners, and our GBC members. And we really want to demonstrate that, you know, the transition is already happening. Our strategy is called Building the Transition. It's being delivered by our local network. And the opportunity at COP and beyond is that, you know, negotiators deliver an outcome that accelerates action in line with the language of the global stocktake. So really what we want to send is a message that we need negotiators to, you know, reduce costs and reliance on fossil fuels by scaling energy efficiency and renewables, and then highlighting within that, well, what's the role for buildings there, and showcasing some of the, you know, amazing initiatives and actions that are already taking place to speak to that. Driving investment in resilient energy systems through things like improved grid infrastructure, storage and demand side management, ensuring finance flows into a new clean economy, and scaling adaptation and resilience in the built environment. And then the idea is, so we you know, this is something that we're populating this week, this letter. But what we will be doing is putting it on our website and, oh, just go back one slide. Putting it on our website and asking, you know, you as GBCs to endorse what we're asking for, but also to use it as a national advocacy tool that you can share with your own members. And getting them to sign up to this. And if we're able to do that, if every GBC was successful in getting every single one of their members, we could have something that's very powerful, showcasing, you know, that this is a group of 47,000 organizations who really believe, you know, that the building sector can deliver in, you know, reducing costs, reducing reliance on fossil fuels, delivering more resilient energy systems, enabling those financial flows, and scaling the adaptation. So we will be in the next couple of days circulating to you a version of that open letter, and it should be quite seamless that you're able to add your own logo. But we will also be sharing with you, you know, information on how you can also share that with your own network so that we can really get that momentum going behind it. So that's one thing it's more immediate, and we'll be presenting that on the external webinar launch that's happening next week. And then just to kind of show you the next slide. So, you know, here we're kind of seeing like building towards COP30, and, you know, COP30 is not the endpoint here. The endpoint is when we're implementing all of the different solutions that we know exist. But there's a lot, you know, that we can do together with it within the network. So we'll be launching the scorecard on the 24th of June, and we see that as a really kind of timely launch. It's launching during London Climate Action Week, which is gaining a lot of kind of global attention. And then what we want to do is, you know, with national GBCs, encouraging you to use the tool to engage with governments, hosting your workshops, recruiting champions or ambassadors, doing that analysis yourselves and sharing that so that we're able to, you know, inform our own sort of global advocacy. And then crucially as well, I think just going back to that open letter statement or the business action statement, recruiting partners and members to support that. And then what we would hope to see is, you know, at COP30, based on all of the kind of collective advocacy that we're undertaking now, is that we are really getting a good profile for buildings in NDCs, but also in the negotiations and the outcome. And then that enabled, you know, more funding and more finance and more policy action from governments, from philanthropies, so that we can continue to build the transition and move on to the next stage. And thinking a little bit about like what Danjuma said, this is for them a catalyst for action on roadmaps, and that's where we would like to see, you know, with the new strategy, building the transition, the network moving towards. So would really encourage everyone to kind of get behind this advocacy drive, to showcase the power of our network and the power of local solutions and local implementation to get us there. And I think that is a narrative that is very strongly coming out now. We're not talking about commitments or ambition. We're demonstrating what's already happening, where things need to be scaled. So there really is a really strong, unique value proposition for this network in delivering on that global sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, you know, the global goals that we're working towards can only be delivered with local action. So I think by working together with this fantastic global, regional, and local action network, we will be able to differentiate ourselves as enablers and implementers. So I think that was everything from my side. Alice, I don't know if we are going to Q&A or I'll hand back to you.
Thanks so much, Audrey, and thanks so much, Bex, as well, for going through your slides. So we've now got about 15 minutes for Q&A. If anyone's got any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A function. But maybe just to say again that on Wednesday we will be sending kind of a summary email, which will have a link to the Trello board, to the digital tool registration link, and also to the PowerPoint slides and to a recording of this meeting as well. Happy to take any live questions now, but also if you've got questions afterwards at any time, feel free to reach out to me on my email, which is on the screen here, or for any questions on campaigning and marketing, it's the media email on the screen. But let's just see if we've got any questions in the Q&A. So I can see a question around, will we receive the slides? Yes, so they will come out on Wednesday. There'll be a kind of a PDF link to those and also to the tool as well. So I think you probably asked that before I just said that, but just for clarity. A second question, how this scorecard is applicable for private real estate entities like in the Philippines. So maybe just for clarity as well. So today we're launching the tool for GBCs. So from today, any green building council can sign up and use the tool. In 2 weeks' time, on Tuesday the 24th, we are doing the external launch. So from that date, anyone and everybody is so welcome to sign up and use the tool. So we'll be doing the external launch on the 24th. So from that date, you will be able to have access to the tool. So you're so welcome to use the tool, to complete it, to look at, you know, what are the linkages with private real estate entities in the Philippines. And it might be that you work with the GBC to complete it and to see what are those next step actions for your industry within the Philippines as well. I don't know, Audrey, if you've got anything to add on that question as well.
No, sorry, just reading the comments. No, I think nothing from my side.
There was a question on what will the deadline for the open letter
Mhm.
signatures be? I don't know, Audrey, if you've got a comment on that.
Yeah, so I've written in the chat box, but the idea is it actually remains open for sign up from its launch date, which is the 24th of June, to maybe just a week ahead of COP. So basically, there is about a 4-month kind of time period for you guys to get your members excited about it. So hopefully that enables more participation. And also an opportunity to see like who's signing up, which regions are more excited to sign up, and some insights like that.
Great, thanks, Audrey. And I've had a couple more questions coming around. How do we sign up to the tool? So on Wednesday in the email, we'll share a link to the tool. So on Wednesday, you can go through the link. You'll come to a registration page. So you fill out your name, which GBC you represent, and your email address, and you click submit. And then there is a manual approval process. So we would then look to approve that within 1 working day for you. So please do log in as soon as you can and register, and so we can get you access as soon as possible. Just to clarify, so anyone who is a member of a green or from a green building council will automatically be able to access the country level scorecard. So you'll be able to be the official person filling out the scorecard for the country. If you also want to assign, for example, your government access to your same account, so it might be that you as the GBC fill out the scorecard for your country, you might then want to share or show it with a representative from your government. They can also have access to your same account so they can see how you've completed it. You might work on it together. You might also want to assign them a different account, which is not the official country account. And that means that they can look at what the policies, look at the potential advocacy strategies, but they won't be completing the scorecard officially for the country. So there's kind of 2 ways, the official country and the non-official non-country assigned login. So hopefully that's clear, but please do ask any questions if it's not clear. Yeah, kind of a comment in there again. NDCs is a game changer for sustainable development, considering the stakeholder partnership initiative embedded. So yeah, totally agree with that. I don't see any more questions. So does anyone have any final questions before we close? I don't see any more questions coming through, so we are going to close shortly, but just a massive thanks to all our speakers, to Audrey and Bex from WorldGBC, and to Christopher and Danjuma from Philippine GBC and GBC Nigeria. Thank you so much for all of your hard work in supporting us in developing the project, and a massive shout out to the pilot GBCs and to the 11 additional GBCs working with us. We're super excited to work with you all and really hoping to work with many more GBCs in the coming months on the tool and to take and accelerate the action across the network. So I'm going to close there, but please do reach out at later stages via email if you've got any further questions. But thanks so much, everyone.
Great. Thank you again, just to everyone, and also to you, Alice, because you've done a great job. And to Mitch's point, I think that's exactly what we want to do with this campaign, is leverage the local network. So one last plea to encourage you all to use all of that so we can really work together in this really important year. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.